And we're live. It's Transform Your Relationships. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the amazing Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Good morning, amazing Laura, and welcome everybody. I hope if you're in Canada that you had a happy Thanksgiving. We down here are looking forward to having one. So today we're going to talk about some very interesting things that may put your teeth on edge for a moment.
And it's in the area of what are you tolerating? So, what are you tolerating?
Well, I think it's a really important question because people don't really think about it often enough, in my opinion. You know, things are okay, well, it's all right. I can get by with it. I'm settling. Oh, well, that's just like that. I can't do anything about it. And if you don't think through how much is it bothering me? What is it I'd prefer to have? Why am I not addressing it? Then you will end up tolerating it. And if you tolerate something for too long that is too uncomfortable, you go into resentment. And that's never a great place to be.
Yeah, you know what I notice about resentment is it comes out in a bad mood. It comes out in snapping at people. It comes out in just an overall dissatisfaction with life. And you kind of don't know how to shake it. But it feels like almost when we're tolerating, we get so used to tolerating, it becomes invisible. And so today, I think we just want to like pop the bubble and say, what are these things that are really bothering you, that you're tolerating, that maybe you can handle? Let's put it that way. How can you handle it once you identify it? Ooh, scary, yeah. And we welcome your comments here, and you're welcome to ask questions. So we love your interaction, engagement, especially if we say something that you like in particular.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, it could put your teeth on edge a little bit because it's like, what do you have on that back burner? What are you not really wanting to pay attention to? What do you prefer to complain about than do something about? There are things over there in the parking lot that we're not taking care of. So it may be a little moment of, do we have to talk about that? But it's worth it.
Yeah, and it's like there's a lot of fear around change or quitting on something or giving up something or letting go of something. So a lot of times when you're tolerating something, it's because you're afraid to let it go or to even look at it. It's been swept under the rug so long that it just becomes a familiar pain, shall we say? And we'd rather keep that than go with the unknown sometimes. So how does one talk themselves into even looking under that rug?
Well, first of all, you have to come to a place where you're honest with yourself. I mean, tolerating something that every time you think about it or you feel about it is an energy leak, an energy drain, is worth having a look at. Like if every time you walk by a pile on your dining room table and you say, "Oh, I should take care of that," you lose energy every time. Well, maybe it's somebody's behavior. Maybe it's your behavior. Maybe it's the way people talk to you. Maybe it's the way they don't. I mean, whatever it is, it's always a good idea to say, if this is bothering me, I deserve to solve it in the best way or take care of it in the best way I know how. Why would I go on tolerating it? Why would I make it okay? I put up a graphic, as I often do, but it said, if you find yourself in the nooks, crannies, crevices, and leftover spaces of somebody's life, you will never have equality, reciprocity, and mutuality, which to me are the three must-haves of a healthy relationship. Well, are you tolerating just fitting into somebody's leftover time or having you feel like you're not important or that you don't matter or your opinion doesn't matter? And if that's a constant, then address it. And if the person won't change, then you may have to change. it's really important to know who we're associating with and why, and what is it that holds us in particular patterns, and what we could actually be empowered to do something about, and what ones we just have to say, hey, not going to change, not going to give it any more energy. But being self-reflective sometimes is things that people don't tolerate.
Yeah, and I can't stress enough that when we're in that situation, we don't have that equality or reciprocity or mutuality, but we're tolerating it. We tend to lash out, and then that's not a good way to behave. That's not a good feeling,
Yeah.
right? We don't like that. So how can we come back to a really good place so we don't have to then we don't like ourselves when we behave that way, right? And so then we keep it stuck there because we feel bad about ourselves. So we must deserve this type of relationship, right? So let's go back to that deserving thing. It really is about you deserve to have a life where you don't get activated like that, where you're not in resentment, right?
Yes. However, you have to have the dreaded boundaries, and you have to have thought through your values so you know what's all right with you. And you have to have given some thought to your part in the equation to see if you could do something differently to get a different result. And then maybe you have to get some courage to discuss something with someone that I'm not sure I want to, and I don't know what they'll do. And then you have to be willing to live with the results of having that conversation. So under the carpet it goes again. That seems like a whole lot. So when we're using the word deserving, it's not like somebody's supposed to give you something that's particular, but you have to feel that you deserve to have your values. You deserve to speak up on your own behalf. You deserve to be in situations where you have mutual respect, where you feel safe, where you can create trust. That's where the deserving comes by. But if you don't feel like you deserve it, then you're going to be tolerating a lot.
So there's a lot of internal work to happen before you express what you want and take action on what you feel you deserve. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's a weird way to say it, actually.
But you're right. There is a lot of internal work to do. But think about this. If you have a conversation with someone and it leaves you with a feeling like, oh, didn't like that. Do you stop and have a few moments with yourself to say, okay, what happened? What was I feeling? Where was I triggered? Was it words? Was it feeling? Was it mood? What was going on? If you don't stop and figure those things out, you just whip on to the next thing, then you're kind of shortchanging yourself. You're not thinking that you deserve to debrief that and find out, what is it? What could I do? What would I prefer? How could I ask for that? And that's something that comes with allowing yourself to do it frequently and to become a habit. And many people don't do that. They're all outgo, right? And you have to in-go before you outgo.
Otherwise,
Because
you might regret the outgo.
you might regret it, and you also don't have anything to add to the conversation. That if you were in the outgo, you're not talking about something that you've spent some time clarifying within yourself. And if you haven't done that, what are you going to say? It's going to come out as blame and blurting and hurting. And it's highly likely why you avoid conflict, because that happens. But the whole thing that has to happen behind the scenes there is that you have had conversations with yourself, that you know what you think, you know what you value, you know what you want, you know what you prefer, you know how you'd like to be treated, you know how you'd like to be spoken to, you know the result you want. And with all of that knowledge from spending some time with yourself, you have something to contribute to that conversation. Your mic's not on.
Thank you. So taking that in, we need to then say, okay, I know what I value. I know what I want. I'm not getting it. There's a big gap. Then there's the whole, how do I bridge this gap, right? And the steps in there is, once you're really clear, doesn't mean you're not triggered still by whatever's, you're tolerating, right? So it's like, okay, I'm tolerating this, but I want to be over here living my values. And there are some maybe big decisions on what are the options and what are the steps to take to
Mhm.
get there.
Yeah, you need to build a bridge to where you want to go. And the other person has to build a bridge on their half too. And if you find that you start building a bridge and the other person has not left the shore, they're not building a bridge, just notice that. The thing is, you don't have to make people wrong. You can just observe their behavior and make decisions yourself. And that's a very important thing. I mean, if I have something that I really need to talk to somebody about because it's really bothering me, and I set it up to have that conversation, and then the other person is all, well, I don't know why you're saying that. I did the best that I could. They're all defense, they're all dismissive, all of that. That's just good information for me. I don't have to say you're being defensive and you're being dismissive and all of that. I don't have to put that conversation in there. I just have to notice and say, do I want more of that in my life? Probably not. So I begin to withdraw. I begin to retreat. I've said what I had to say. If it's not available to me at this time with that person, then you just notice that. I think in general, I work with so many people every week, and it seems to always be such a relief when I say to them, all questions don't need an answer. and and all things that you are feeling and thinking don't have to be said. You can observe somebody's behavior and make an internal decision to go in another direction, or to spend less time with them, or to just recognize who they are and how they're processing, and say, okay, I'm not going to try that one again. I don't have to make a pronouncement. All right, I'm not going to bother with you again. I just vote with my feet, don't go in that direction anymore. They're doing life their way. They're happy to do that. I need to be aware that I'm doing life my way, and I'm willing to do that. And I'm the one who started the conversation, and the other person couldn't meet me halfway. So let it go.
And it's amazing how empowered it feels when you're not reacting to someone. You're calibrating according to your own values. And when you're, instead of worrying about what the other person is going to react or say or do, or what they just said, but you know where you want to go, and you want the kind of relationship, and you come from the place of that, what is the highest place you want to get to, you have that freedom to not respond. You have that freedom um, to say something different, to say, well, that I understand. I hear what you're saying. And what I am looking for is this. What I need is this. And, if they don't give it to you, that's their prerogative. And there's no
Yeah.
judgment there, but there is a decision to be made perhaps on this side where, okay, well, I see their actions. We always talk about that. Actions speak more loudly than words. I hear the words, I see their actions. If it matches with my values and what I want, great, we can continue. If not, like you said, withdraw, retreat from that. I don't know if it's a relationship or situation or
Topic.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, it could be any number of things, but, I think the main point is to know if something bothers you enough to feel confident that you can speak up about it. And then you lean in with curiosity to see how interested and willing the other person is to have a conversation of resolution. If they're not interested in it, they're in that defensive mode or the dismissive mode, then you have to calibrate whether you'll have that conversation again, or you'll just accept that that's the way they feel about it. But that's where you as an individual have your personal power. Someone said to me this morning, oh, I'm just so angry, I'm going to crush my ex. And because I've realized this, and I wrote to them, it was someone responding to one of my YouTube videos, and I said, well, I'm really happy that you've had this realization, but I would suggest that you use your energy for empowering yourself rather than crushing the other one.
Yay.
Right? But we go through stages, and she was obviously very angry because she just figured out that she was with a hijackal. And then all of this anger came up because then she realized that she'd had a hijackal parent and all of this, and now she's going to crush that person like an ant. And I'm like, yeah, maybe not. I understand that that's a stage of healing, but
I really love this conversation because when we get into the other's I got to revenge the other, avenge it. We're totally avoiding ourselves and the opportunity we have to grow, heal, and feel more power in our body. We're actually giving the other person the power.
yes, exactly. And that's what I said to her. I said, if you stop giving that person real estate in your head and focus on where it is you'd like to be 2 months from now, or what direction you as a human would like to go in, free up that energy, stop the crushing. Lots of people write to me about my YouTube videos, and I answer them all, except for some of them that don't require an answer. But we're the ones who are the author of our actions. We're not the author of our experience in the sense that someone else can behave in a way. I'm the author of my response, but I didn't create the experience aside from placing myself in that person's aura, I guess. But we need to sort of step up and get really acquainted with ourselves. And to go back to the topic of tolerating, sometimes you have old tapes in your head that go, a good person would.
If you
And
really
it's
love me, you would.
yeah, and it's a toleration. It's like a good person would. Well, I don't know. I'll give you an example. I have 2 phrases in the English language I'd like to abolish. And one of them is give until it hurts.
Oh,
Okay, so what an insane thing someone said at some point. But everybody who feels less than and feels like I would be a good person if I lived by that does not bother to have the thought process that said if everyone give till it hurt, everybody would be hurting. Right? So what are you tolerating? Are you tolerating ideas like that in your head? Have you just adopted them or inherited them or adapted them from somebody else? And you're using the thought process or an attitude or whatever without personal examination. There's a good starting point for figuring out whether or not you're tolerating something.
You're talking about something we've talked about before, but do other people count more than you?
Yes.
And what really about tolerating and being able to let go of tolerations is having that equality that you do have. You count as much as anybody else. Anybody else.
Well, that's how we create equality.
What a concept.
So if we're feeling, that we don't have equality, we don't count as much as anybody else, we might not speak up. But what happens then is when things happen that we don't like, we go and vent and rant to our friends, oh, this is terrible. You won't believe what he or she did. Isn't it awful? There are people in the world that do all of that. Can you get the negative energy of that? Yes, sometimes we need to get it out of our body. That's what good friends are for. But how much time do we actually spend in that mindset? If it's momentary, great, you get it out, your friend goes, okay, everything cool, great, bye. Everything is good. Yeah, but we don't have to dwell there. We don't have to dwell in resentment. We don't have to dwell in a place we have judgments about everybody we have to talk about, because we can handle them. And then if we're in situations, like a woman wrote to me also this morning, and she said, I've been staying with my mother, and my mother's passive aggressive, and she's just we were there to help her, but she's just driving us crazy. So my husband and I are thinking of getting an apartment with the children and moving out. And I was going, husband, children, all of this. And so I just wrote to her, I said, what a good and healthy decision to move out and not have your children influenced by the behaviors and the conversations, nor by the tension, and that you would have a wonderful place to relax, a sanctuary where you could restore yourself. And then if you wish to help your mother, you could still drop by. And, these are decisions that we make. And if we don't revisit some of these decisions, we can go into that tolerating. Well, I have to. Well, no, you don't. Everything you're doing is a choice.
There's always a choice. It may not be the choice that feels easy to make in the first outset, but if it's going to bring you peace and happiness, it's going to bring you peace and happiness. And why wouldn't you give yourself that?
Yes, and maybe it won't bring you happiness. It'll bring you resolution. It'll bring you information. It'll bring you an insight. Like, here I am. I wanted to speak to that person about this for so long, and the person was so gracious, and they said, oh, I had no idea you felt that way. Let's work something out. It's gone. You're relieved. And on the other hand, you bring it up to someone and they say, who do you think you are talking to me like that? And you go, okay, got it, out of here, right? But if you don't do anything about it, if you just tolerate it, you don't feel good about you.
No. And that's a really sad place to be.
Yes. And, now and again, I choose to tolerate things. I have elderly friends, and they have lost their filters.
Interesting how that happens.
Yes. So I don't say, how dare you have an opinion as strong as that and try and put it all over me. We have to be understanding. I tolerate that because I value them, and I know that they're living very quiet lives right now. And they're frustrated and they're irritated and they've lost their filters. So it's a personal choice. But I don't think it as toleration in that case. I think of it as acceptance. And there's a difference.
There it is. There's two different things. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. What is the difference between tolerating and accepting?
Well, tolerating is when I'm putting up with something that I really don't like. It's really not working for me, and I'm not examining it, and I'm not taking any action.
And it's probably against your values, right?
Probably. But acceptance is, okay, you're 96 years old, you're frustrated, you're contained by COVID, you can't have the life remaining that you really would like to have because you don't know how much life you have remaining, and there's nobody visiting you, and you're cranky, and you've lost your filter. I accept that. I have friends who are not 96 who get into an anxiety state, and I know them well enough and I can watch them when they're in that state. I just accept that, oh, okay, they're in anxiety. That's the way they behave when they're in anxiety. I'm not tolerating it. I accept it. I know
You don't have
that
resentment against it.
No, but tolerating is when I think it should be different, and I think you should do things differently, and I don't like this at all, and this just doesn't work for me, and it's taking up all this real estate in my head, and I can't get to sleep at night because I'm fuming about you. Maybe you're tolerating something because you're sure not accepting it.
Yeah. And I think acceptance is a huge healing energy too. I don't know if some things that are being tolerated can move to acceptance, or they need to, or the
Sure.
decision needs to be, needs to be a decision made. So I like where we started off, where you said, let's take the time to really evaluate, take a look under that rug and say, okay, what's here? What am I tolerating? And what am I not accepting? What are my values? And what do I want? I think most people think they know what they don't want, but that's completely different than what you do want.
Yes, it sure is.
And if you can really hone in onto what you do want, and then the next step is, well, how do I get from where I am to what I want? What I really in my heart of hearts want. Not what you don't want, but what you do want.
Yes, and focus on that. Back to the person who wrote to me this morning. If I'm really angry and I'm focused on crushing the other person, interesting use of your energy. How
Yeah.
about use that energy for walking away? That would be good.
Even taking time to, one of the things I really wanted and I made a decision about was I wanted to feel, there's so much anxiety going on in the world. It seeps in and I've been tolerating it. And then I realized, well, what am I doing to have what I want, which is more connection to my inner bliss? So, the minute I start thinking about that, then opportunities show up, like opportunity to take a bliss class twice this month, a bliss yoga class. So guess what? I took one and it was amazing how what came up, like this like beautiful, peaceful state. And I'm like, wow, exactly what I wanted. And I knew it was there. But when we get tolerating and tolerating and tolerating and not doing the thing that, could be helpful to not tolerate this, I accept that there's anxiety in the world. I accept that I'm going to have some situations that it's going to, but at the same time, it was weighing me down and I needed a release and I wanted it to be a positive. That was the other thing. Like, what do I want? I want it to be a positive. I don't want to just let off steam and feel better and at
Yeah,
somebody else's expense. Right.
yeah,
So
good plan.
I love this concept we came up with: empower yourself instead of crushing another. It doesn't help to put somebody else down, blame somebody else, shame somebody else, blurt out at somebody else. It doesn't make you feel any better. It doesn't empower yourself. It gives the power away to them, and it takes a whole lot of energy, and it doesn't get to that core of what more peace or more balance in your life or more clear thinking, giving ourselves just more, part of that class was breathing, giving my brain a time to absorb oxygen. Wow. It's amazing the subtle shift that can happen when we do that, right? And we've talked about breathing exercises.
Absolutely. One of the things that I do is I keep my yoga area in my living room. So, I'll get up from the computer and I have a nice narrow bolster, not a big fat one, although I have those as well, but very long, and it goes down my spine and I lie over it and it opens my chest, and then I open my arms, and you can just lie there and breathe more deeply, open your chest, get a little more air. I mean, what kind of practices do you have that take care of you so that you can be in that good place? So it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Take care of you. Take care of your part in the interaction. Have a conversation with yourself. What's really bothering me about this? Get underneath what you think it is and see what's beneath that. Do your own work first before you go blurting about somebody else, because if it's an adult, newsflash, you're not their parent.
Oh, wow. What a concept. You're your own caretaker, not their caretaker necessarily. Wow. Cool. I love that we're talking about this. What are we tolerating? Is it something we need to accept, sit with, and make a decision about? How can we take care of ourselves more consciously, really, so that we can bring more sanity to our lives? I think it's the bottom line. And when we're living in insane times, it's like we need more sanity. Who wants more sanity? Can we just be human? With our needs and authentic and just focus in this way instead of blaming and trying to. I find that anytime I hear a blame or somebody else's fault, it's like they're really talking about themselves. It's like a mirror, right?
Sometimes. I mean, that's a whole psychological process called projection, where what somebody is very concerned about is going on for them, or that they're behaving in that way, they'll tell you are. But sometimes it's just somebody knows you really well, and they'll say, "What about this?" Or "It looks like it could be this." So you have to be able to calibrate these things. I mean, there's lots and lots of spin-offs from this conversation, but I think this is an important thing to start out with. Just ask yourself, what am I tolerating? And would it be a good idea for me to do something about that?
Hmm.
Start there.
It's a great place to leave everybody with until our next episode of Transform Your Relationships with another topic in another couple of weeks. So thank you all for being here. Shout out to those of you who are here. And thanks for the love, Kimberly and Crystal, and the comments we got. We will certainly attend to them in the comments for you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.